Now I would like to invite Ms. Kavita Jhunjhunwala to kindly address the audience and share her experience of her journey in establishing herself as a successful entrepreneur today. Ma'am, over to you.
Thank you, girls. I think I was really enjoying Eshi's uh, peppy conversation, and I think you're a natural when it comes to this. And
Thank you so much for
I'm so
having
happy to be
me.
here, and thank you, Sojanya, for inviting me. So I want to keep it very informal. I'd be very happy to hear from the kind of questions that you have, or the challenges that you think, or even if you have some myths about things like entrepreneurship, or how do you form a career, what do you think, what do you look. So my daughter is due to go to college this year, so I'm also dealing with a different set of questions from her, as and I can understand it's very different from when we started more than 20 years ago, and it was more free flowing. So I actually, just a little bit about myself. I'm from Calcutta. I was born and brought up in Calcutta, and I studied in Lamarcknia School until I joined college. I had no clue what I was going to do. Okay, so I think you guys are a lot more sorted than we have ever been in the past. And once I joined college, and because my father was a chartered accountancy gold medalist, and it seemed like just the right footstep to follow. So I don't know how many of us do that anymore, follow exactly what our parents did, but it was like we had CS and we had CA, as the alternate forms of courses if you were continuing to stay on board. But so I did 4 years of articleship, and I did auditing, etc. And I used to always in my head, and no offense to anybody who loves accounts, I love accounts and finance as well. But I used to always think that, oh gosh, I'm doing post-mortem, somebody else has done a transaction and all I'm doing is doing a post-mortem of accounts. So anyways, I went through my 4 years of thing, and then I happened to get very, very interested in the internet, which was just coming in at that point of time into India. And yes, I am that old. Like, you talk about internet coming 20 years ago. So I also just, we got very curious. We used to get these BSNL accounts for some 15,000 rupees for 500 hours. Yeah, there was a limit. Not like unlimited internet and hundreds of GB that you get today. But so we used to use those accounts, and it just happened that there was a point where businesses didn't know about how or what they could do digitally. So we would learn on one side, and then we would go and sell it to a customer. So we would go and learn. Today we would learn what website is, and tomorrow we would find a company who might be looking for a website. And then so this is how the whole digital learning was born. There was, I remember in 99, we ordered a book from Amazon from the US, because of course you didn't have Amazon here. The book was on ASP.NET, which was a programming language just coming in. So the cost of the book was about $40. Can anybody take a guess of how much shipping we paid for that? You can put your answers on the chat box. Can you just take a wild guess?
Come on, throw me a number. Let's make it a little interactive as to how much would a shipping from the US in like 25, 24 years ago cost. All right. Okay. So we are being very quiet. So anybody? Okay. So it for a $40 book, we paid $120 for shipping, something that we couldn't. So you should thank that you all have that 999 rupees Prime account now. So yes, so we did that, and that's how we began the whole journey from two people. My previous company was called Web Spiders, co-founded it, and it started with two of us, and a lot of experimentation and learning at that point of time. And the only thing was that what kept us interested was that we were very interested to learn. And I share the same thing with all my the students that we handle even at MICA and through upgrad, etc., that the core function in life is always the willingness to want to learn. You should always be constantly curious. Today I'm sure you guys have taken some decision on being on a course today, but there's no knowing where your interest will go, what are the new opportunities that will come, how the world will change. So having that agility to change and having the ability to quickly learn your way into something new is the way to challenge yourself and also to grow. Whatever will be uncomfortable will always be a function of growth. So if you get very comfortable, one of my favorite lines always is that, comfort is for mattresses. So if I see somebody saying, "Oh, I'm very comfortable here," I say, "Yeah, well, that's for mattresses." So I think we have a lot more opportunities today. Even for myself, the pandemic, of course, I'm sure everybody talks about it as to what they learned and what they didn't learn. But for me, the pandemic was a lot about resilience, and it was also an extreme function of understanding, what you really value. So while we run on our career paths, it's extremely critical to find the function of value in your life. What are you valuing? Are you today? We value our family, we value our friends, we also value our career. But in the bargain, do we sacrifice one for the other? So we shouldn't get so hard nosed in the path of careers that we forget our core human values as well. So these are things that I feel, really, if I have to put in a nutshell, one of my redeeming functions in life has been that I've been able to learn and switch gears quickly. So uh, the, it's always been challenging. I moved back, so I went to we shifted our company to Singapore in 2011. Developed a completely new service range for the Singapore government, one of the few Indian companies to be empaneled for digital strategy with them. And again in 2016 end, I moved back to India in a very short span of 7 days, and that was a huge gear shift. I stopped working in my previous company, and I just took a step back to understand where are we going with this, and whether digital is being approached in the same way that we are approaching it 15 or 20 years ago. So it doesn't matter what you choose to do, but you must question why and how you're going into this, and at what cost you're going into it.
Very
So
true.
sometimes, we'll be like, oh, okay, let's do this. It's going to, we make decisions based on monetary backgrounds. Sometimes we make decisions on emotional backgrounds. We make decisions on just on a whim. You know, the best decisions are the one that will come from your gut instinct. So you need to listen to what feels right rather than what other people are telling you right. So I think that's pretty much it. To just follow a little bit of your instinct, and a lot of people say, "What if my instinct is wrong? What if my gut is
Fair
not?"
enough. What if I'm wrong?
Yeah. So what if I'm wrong? So I said, yeah, okay. So what if you're wrong? Why is there such a hard request from yourself to be always right? You were not always right, right? So
Touche.
so yeah, she is like, all right.
No, ma'am, fair enough. That takes a lot of pressure off actually.
Yeah, no,
You
but
don't have to always be perfect and right and correct. It is
I
okay to
don't know
go back.
why, who told you this and who told us this, that uh, that everything is right. If I don't say that don't believe in right or wrong, I think there is always a right. Anybody giving you an input saying, oh, there is no right and wrong, that's a moral degradation. But what you think is wrong can always also be corrected. It's not that you cannot go back if you made a mistake, or you cannot correct. The best thing at the point of making a mistake is that you realize that you made a mistake and you actually genuinely correct it. Making a mistake is just fine. It's a way of learning. I mean, I don't think so all of us got 100 on 100 on all our papers. I didn't. And I mean, of course, I'm very hard on my kids when they get in the 90s, and I'm like, oh, what happened to the other 10? But that's a typical Indian mother, right? So I'm sure moms have also done that, but there's no harm. But if you make the same mistake again, yes, then I think that's a different story. So there you want to kind of not make, at least learn. The mistakes are probably one of the best teachers that we can have today in our own ecosystem. So what are the top three thoughts that you girls have?
Well, ma'am, first of all, I'm taking this to my grave. Comfort is for mattresses. I love that sentence, and I'm remembering it for the rest of my life. And ma'am,
Nice.
also, ma'am, the very fact that you said that you don't really need to be right all the time, Oshi, you can just chill a little bit and take things easy. They will fall into place. And we just want to, we have to work to achieve our goals, and it is all a learning curve, ma'am. So I take that from you too.
See, you're already so smart. I'm telling you, we were not so smart when we were your age. We were very secure. I think protected. We didn't have so many learning tools available to us. We didn't have these interaction sessions. So we only learned from our small ecosystems of the families and etc. So I think you're already way smarter than at Captain. So on the learning aspect, um, so I get asked, how do I learn? Because obviously it's very easy to say, go pray. So how do you pray? So how do you learn? So I
Exactly.
think one of the habits, I don't know how many of you are very keen to do that, is also uh, the single habit is to read. If you read today and read like there's no tomorrow, that you must read. And it is the first thing that actually the first thing I do now in the morning is that is spend at least an hour reading, and the day changes. So our every day's habit, what you do every single day, will matter more than what you do at one point of time, as one starter. So it's not to say that there are no challenges in life. There will be enough. And but in 5 years time you'll forget the challenges that you have today, and then there will be new challenges to look at. So but if you read, not only will you find the answers to many things, but you will also have the ability to use it as a mirror to see what resonates with you. So I see a lot of us have kind of, over the years with the advent of technology, reading has kind of
Gone
tapered
down.
One way.
off. So how much do you
No, no,
read?
Ma'am, I
it's
am
all
an avid reader. I read a lot.
Okay.
But ma'am, storybooks mostly. So
That's fine. In fact, Albert Einstein said that, if you want your children to be smart, read them fairy tales. And if you want them to be even more smarter, read them more fairy tales.
all
Okay.
about kids.
So, of course, I'm sure we've read all the popular fairy tales that are there, but reading is the single most function that will survive us, I think, for the next many decades to go. So,
very
but
true.
That right now this generation has become so detached from reading. It's all about always being on phone or your tablets or your
But
laptop,
but
something
even
like
then, Kritika, we have ebooks and stuff, because my parents, there was a point of time, ma'am, when I used to read all the time, like
mm,
literally all the time. I used to forget to eat. I was so addicted to books, but storybooks. So that's the biggest thing.
mm,
So my mom was kind of fed up with that, and she stopped buying me books. So what did I do? I went online and I got my books. So Kritika, it
okay.
depends on the person really. If you once get, it's very true that this is a generation of technology. We're always in front of our screens and doing
Yeah.
everything really. But then
but
again,
ma'am,
it is a choice, I feel like. So you can read
I
there too.
I feel that it's very important for any person to have a set of disciplines that they should follow, a regular discipline in order
Yeah.
to move forward. Which again, this generation, I feel that they have become. It's very reluctant situation everyone is having. Like, I don't know why, because maybe they're feeling that there is insecurity of jobs, or there's a lot of, people do not want to take the risk of entrepreneurship. So these are few elements that I would like to ask you, that what encouraged you, like literally, risk taking factor is one thing that will stop the gates at the very beginning.
True.
The
True.
the immense investment that goes under any entrepreneurship program or a campaign, that is a big task to go for. So how, ma'am, did you build up the courage, I say, to go forward with this?
Yes,
So the
ma'am. And ma'am, also, if you could please talk to us about your inspiration behind all of this.
Okay, very tough questions already. Okay, you should have sent it to me earlier. Inspiration is, I think the inspiration is always a moving target. It's not a person. It's definitely not something that you would have read somewhere and just held on to it. It moves a lot. So today, in the first half of the day, my inspiration is the fact that I like what I do. That's my first inspiration. I genuinely enjoy what I do. So, and I can talk to you about digital for days at end without stopping. And I have a lot of interest in the subject. So first thing is that do something that you like, not something that you don't like. So if you are there in doing that thing that you like, you will find deep pools of inspiration within yourself. The challenge I see now, a lot of people thinking that, okay, I'll get inspired by this. Those are very temporary inspirations, so those will happen and be helpful for certain moments. But if you needed something that is a consistent layer of inspiration, has to be yourself. It has to be you, and it has to be the standard that you hold yourself at. That is the inspiration. So for me, even if I'm really, really tired on a specific day, the fact that I've committed something to somebody, that it has to be done and it will be done, is a promise to myself. So I see that working as an inspiration to get it done. And trust me, I don't know why entrepreneurship is glamorized. I have never understood it. It's not, there is nothing glamorous about it. It's tremendous amount of heartache. It's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of painful points, but you are usually designed like that. It's like if I like cake, I like cake. You cannot make me like something else. It's like that. So I feel that uh, don't glamorize everything. I feel that the glamour function tends to mislead people. In fact, anybody asks me for entrepreneurship advice, etc., I'm like, it's a lot of hard work. Are you ready for it? Are you ready to inspire yourself? Are you ready to take more responsibility than you would have taken versus in a job? So I'm my peon also occasionally. I'm the person who does the photocopying also, and I'm the one who signs the $1 million contract also. So sometimes you have to do everything. So you have to make sure that you don't think or benchmark work that this is not my work. Everything is your work. Okay. So those are things important. But sometimes inspiration can come in some very unexpected sources. So for me, my journey of inspiration today is my children. I'm inspired to do well at work, to set an example for them. That that's literally my only inspiration right now. That am I doing something that A, they will be proud of, and B, they will strive to take it further. Now, of course, I know you guys are not in that journey, but you will have parents that you would want to make proud of. You would have your own peer group that you would like to kind of get awareness in. But at the end of the day, it's all extremely simple, because there is no reason for you to not be inspired. So somebody says, how do you get inspired? But I said, but what is uninspiring you? You're only uninspired when you don't like that piece of work. If you really like something, you found ways to read online, right? Because you really like doing it. So you should definitely like what you do. That is the first ask. And if you don't like it, if you are dragging your feet about it, please stop, question yourself, and then change tact, or change that direction, because it's not going to be sustainable. So that's it.
Absolutely.
Sorry, what was your other question, Kritika? One was inspiration. What the other one was? There
Ma'am,
was
I was asking what exactly, one part was inspiration only, that what inspired you and how did you go about with the journey of entrepreneurship? Like, we always get scared, right?
yeah,
So,
okay, right. That is a part of it. You have to be shit scared. I think you have to just be shit scared, and you have to look at, fear. I think is a good thing also, because it makes you do things that you didn't think you could do.
Absolutely,
Fear
ma'am.
can
It
also be deliberate.
motivates you like nothing else.
Yeah,
Like,
and it's also, again, I'm not romanticizing fear, okay, as a function. Sometimes you're fearful, but there is no other way. you
line
know
between overconfidence and underconfidence is the middle line that, you're not overconfident, but you're not that underconfident. You have faith in yourself also. It's like
I
that.
I think we have too many labels nowadays. Yeah. So I think this. Some days you just have to get up, look at your instinct, at what is inspiring you. I like, let's say today, you work for a few years and you decide to be, join some friends and do a, let's say, start a business or do a startup or things like that. You really have to feel good about it, and you have to be committed to that function. You might have occasions of fear. You might think that, okay, I'm making the biggest mistake of my life. Then give yourself that runway of 3 months or 6 months or 1 year to make that mistake, you know, and then see that what happens. And nothing is irreversible. No person is indispensable. Nothing is irreversible, other than getting, like, other than really dying, there's nothing that is irreversible. So nothing will happen. I think we tend to sometimes give too much of weightage to what our parents say, that, oh, you are taking a risk, or a lot of external sounds are there. In fact, interestingly, the community I come from, hardly any women work in that community. Okay, there is I when I started working, um, it was I used to get a lot of negative comments from relatives. Oh, you cannot attend this social function because, oh, you have to go to work. I have also gone back. uh, I have delivered my kids and gone back to office on the 8th day each time. The second time I had my son, I went back to the office under the pretense that I'm going to the doctor. Okay, so if you if you really like what you're doing, again, you'll find ways to do it. So, and my the whole journey became a lot of fun also, because I was like, okay, I'm not supposed to do this, and nobody else is doing this. So now let me do this. So you have to have that little bit of a rebel streak in you, that, okay, I'm not going to toe the line. You will, of course, toe the line in terms of respect to people, in terms of listening to what the elders say and things like that. But following your heart has its own advantages. You cannot negate that. And at that journey, please learn more and more skills. There is no end to learning. So I was doing my chartered accountancy. Today I do digital consulting work for two of Singapore government's largest deep tech funds. I had no clue what technology was when I started. I could barely use Microsoft Word. That was the extent of technology. Today we are consulting on cybersecurity. We are consulting on things which are relating to AI. In Bangalore, where I live right now, I'm also part of the probably the world's only pure digital museum that is coming up now. 20 years ago, if somebody would have told me you'll do all these things, I would have laughed. I said, you are drunk for sure. This is like too funny. But because the curiosity is there, and because you feel challenged by new things, that, okay, let me see if I can do it or not, and whether this will work or not. So that piece, and when it does, that that sense of
Joy.
satisfaction is immense, and it is very humbling, because you realize how many people would have worked with you to make it possible. So your team and you are not separate, they are always one. And it has been humbling when somebody comes and says that, oh, this, I never thought we could pull this off, and then you realize that, oh well, this was supposed to happen, so there it is. But learning part is extremely important. It's like, I cannot stress that while you're at the course is great, but you never stop learning. I hope that
Absolutely,
answers
ma'am.
some part of your question. If not,
Absolutely, ma'am. It does answer. Also, ma'am, one thing, ma'am, even if you fail at something, doing something that you have loved and you have chosen uh, for because you love it, even if you fail doing it, I feel like even that is satisfying to some extent, because at least it was your decision, entirely your decision, and nobody had a say in it. So,
I think that's okay to say, but again, I think, in again, I don't romanticize failure at all. Failure can be very deliberate.
100% that
it,
something
it
somewhere.
has its it it has its own challenges, especially if somebody else suffers because of your failure.
that
But
is true.
yeah, but if you are very mindful about where you are failing or what's failing at that point, and if you can look at it and correct course, then you will find that sometimes you pivot to something really good. So always have So I've been told many times that that there is something very positive. Like I'll find the positive in every shit. So I've been told, you will find something to find, and I don't credit it too much. Very honestly, I'm like, yeah, what's the alternative? Whether it is today in a personal situation or a work situation, if you don't look at the positive, there is only the negative to look at. We all know theoretically and practically that a negative mindset has never had a positive result. There is no upside. So if you say that, okay, I only have to find the positive in this, and that's good to go with, there again is how you will get out of a failed situation. That is where you will build that grit, that I have to get out of this and I have to get up from this, and it's failed, let's move.
Let's
Let's
move
keep
on.
moving. Yeah.
Right.
And at that point, if it is like you feel very challenged to do it yourself, there is no harm in reaching out to people and asking for help. I also noticed a lot of people in my generation uh, are very hesitant to ask for help, thinking that it makes them smaller, or what will people think if I ask for help. Like, sometimes people reach out for monetary help, sometimes people reach out to just to share something and get advice. Don't be afraid or be shy of asking anyone to help. you know and I can tell you, if somebody today reached out to me, said that, hey, can you just help me with this, it will be a very dark day to say no. So I don't think so we are built to say no to anybody reaching out to us for help. So we must be quite okay to reach out with and reach out to our friends, to our family, even to strangers, even to business people that you might know. There's no shame in it, and there's no shame in admitting if it's not working all right. It's at least you're aware that it's not okay. Having said that, you will find inspiration even in failure at times, where you will see that here's what doesn't work, and things like that. But again, I think we can talk about some happier stuff.
Sure, ma'am.
So, ma'am,
So,
we have quite a number of aspiring students with us today. And so, could you please explain what is digital marketing all about? Like, just brief us what are the bases?
My God, you guys will know more about digital today than I think I ever will. But because you all are literally born on the internet and we learned the internet. Having
Ma'am,
said that,
interrupt you once by saying this
sorry,
that maybe we are the last generation whose pictures were taken in cameras. We would be the
correct.
last, probably be the last generation.
very true. My
Because
mother was talking about it the other day. We'll probably be the last generation who had pictures taken on proper camera. Very true.
Oh, I don't have even one of them now. Now that you say, uh, so I want to make one distinguished difference between what I do and what digital marketing is. A lot of people, not just students, but a lot of my clients, whenever I talk about digital strategy, say, "Oh, digital marketing." Now, the function of digital strategy is, I think, something that you should look at more versus looking at digital marketing. Digital marketing is a subset or a component of digital strategy. When we talk about digital strategy, it is for either existing businesses, upcoming businesses, or businesses that are born on the internet, where we are understanding how you will use various components of functionalities available on digital and make it a part of your business's process, as well as the DNA, the core DNA of the business. So that is how we understand strategy. So let's say for example, there is a business that is looking to grow their bottom line by 25%. I'm taking an example of one of my clients, that's a shoe company. They are looking at increasing their sales by 25% in the year. So they do some bit of digital marketing. They do some bits of selling through third party platforms, but they don't see the option of growing 25% without adding maybe another 50 stores, which they don't want to do in the physical world. So in such a situation, um, just saying that, okay, let's do more digital marketing, or let's get to Snapchat, or let's put more Instagram stories, that's not going to be the solution. Because that, what will you do after you have done that? how will you grow? So in such a case, when we sit with the C-suite of the company, we understand first, we are identifying what the problem statement is, and then based on our knowledge of what all is possible in the digital sphere, where are the audiences which they want, where are the buyers going, and where can they be found, and how can they come and complete a transaction with this company, that is to buy shoes, how can it be achieved? Now when we hear this problem statement, we go back and review what the competitive landscape is, we understand what the buying behavior is, what the upcoming trends are online, and what are the expenses that they are likely to incur if they follow any plans that we design. Now, in such a case, one of my, for this particular client, we designed something called the D2C experience, which was the direct to consumer experience. This was done in 2019, way before the pandemic happened, and the company was obviously sitting on the fence about selling directly online, because they said, hey, we can sell through a Myntra today, right? We can sell through Jabong, but they were paying 35% of their profits to them. So if a shoe costed 100 rupees, they were paying 35 rupees to Jabong. Now, when they started selling it directly, they could keep that 35 rupees to themselves, okay, because they were not paying commissions to anybody, and they were only paying 5 rupees extra for transaction fee. Now, when you do the math, and that's what we end up doing when we write the strategy for them, is that if you build this and if you start selling it like this, your margins could be like this. Okay. And if you bought in X number of, then you start plugging in the digital marketing, the nurturing, the offers, and all those things as the final layer for growing your customer base. So there are two very big advantages of approach like this, is that you get to know your customers because they are buying directly from you. So you get to know who is buying. Okay. And then you are able to also figure out what products you should have. And the second is that the margins you are holding on to, that will again affect 25% growth that you want to get. So interestingly, when we launched this D2C facility for them, they started to sell 400 pairs of shoes in 2 months on their site every single day, which is equivalent to two physical stores. So let's, for example, two physical stores would have costed them an investment of 1.5 crores. The D2C store costed them 10 lakhs. Okay.
Wow.
So this is how you approach a strategic viewpoint and take them onto that. Today, if you go and Google D2C, almost all upcoming brands now have their own web store, right? Versus selling from platforms, because they realized in the pandemic that they are super dependent on these platforms. I have received messages from the clients in April of 2020, in the middle of the pandemic lockdown, that every night when we see that we are still being able to sell, even though we can't deliver yet, we are still being able to get sales online. We thank you from the bottom of our heart. So I've actually got messages with their whole sales screenshots and everything. So what happens is, of course, there is no oracle to this, right? But if you have the understanding of where the digital organization is going, so that is the piece of work that I do. There is no training school to go to do this. It is bucket loads of experience in developing lots and lots of things in the backend and learning technology stacks, learning user behavior, and all that then combines into the ability to give advice. So, I mean, I struggle to tell people that, hey, if I ask somebody, what's your strategy? They'll say, oh, we are doing 4 Instagram posts. And I'm like, okay. So, and
That is not how that works.
so fortunately, the pandemic did become a very good time for the owners of businesses to step back and start asking their digital teams what they are doing, and also for them to start looking at a strategic approach, because now there was no playbook. Earlier, what brands would do is that they would see what their competition is doing, what their global brands are doing, and just mimic it, with some success, and they used to be okay with it. But after the pandemic and how our own behavior changed in buying online, it has become even more critical, because businesses don't have unlimited resources now to spend on developing things. So if you don't do it strategically, then those are the mistakes that they begin to make. So I'm literally, uh, I also tell my clients that, one of the things that I'll help you do is not make expensive mistakes. So that becomes because expensive mistakes also mean loss in opportunity of the time, because then in that time your competitor would have done the right thing and gotten ahead of you. So there is no stopping somebody else taking the right decision and you losing out in that. So that's one of the biggest things that we must understand is strategy and tactical. Digital marketing is tactical, as in this is what you need to, these are the things A, B, C, D, what you have to do. But the strategy is the thinking part of it. And sometimes, again, uh, I do a lot of reading analysis before recommending anything to a customer, especially in the analytics part of it, which also is a very largely ignored part when it comes to digital. A lot of mid to small size businesses will not go in and read their numbers, like how many site visits or what is a conversion rate, what is a cost to customer. I don't know how many of you are actually doing or studying digital, but these things are very easily learnable online. You don't even need to go in and pay an expensive course. You can do a Google AdWords certified course. You can go learn at HubSpot. You just need to be curious, and you will find that there'll be terms that link you from one to the other. So today, if you learned what is the cost of advertising online, you will automatically arrive to a term called CAC, which is cost of acquisition of a customer, which is what the intelligent organizations will use. That this is what it is costing me to get a new customer. And then you can go deeper and deeper into the analytics part. So the other side of strategy work is to be able to do some number reading and to be able to say that, okay, the numbers tell you this story with some assumptions. So again, so if you go back to the question of digital marketing, it sits like one of the many things that we have to do. So I feel that sometimes I get a little like, somebody very senior will say, I'll say, okay, I help in digital strategy. They say, oh, digital marketing. And I'm like, oh, it's like a little bit of a toothache for me.
Yes,
So
ma'am. So, ma'am, digital strategy is like an umbrella term, and digital marketing is just one of the components under it.
actually, it's not even really a component. It's a tool we have, and there is a tremendous amount of work that goes in there as well, because your platforms have become many today, and we are also, as consumers, we move in and out of platforms very fast. So I think the strategy is really more. It sits more at the C-suite level, where you are dealing with the business itself, and whereas the digital marketing sits more with the marketing team, whereas what they are amplifying. So now digital marketing has become largely a way of amplification. Also, a lot of organizations tend to think that buying online ads is digital marketing. Actually, that's not. That's more of media marketing. So if you're just buying ads online, you're not really applying a lot of intelligence until unless you tie it with strategy. So that's again, there are many deeper components. They are partially linked, partially unlinked. It depends on the type of business. So let's say for the shoe company, the digital marketing is still a marketing function. Okay. But when I work with a digital museum, the digital marketing is a core function. So where the function sits will depend on the type of organization that it is. So let's say Swiggy today. Swiggy digital marketing is huge for Swiggy, right? It's a core function, correct? But if you go today to somebody who is manufacturing coal, it's not even a function, right?
Very
So
true.
you have to see where and what the organization does.
Absolutely, ma'am. And ma'am, like you pointed out about this shoe company that was working and selling even during a pandemic. So, ma'am, that reminds me, ma'am, that the world right now, it is going through a roller coaster ride due to the current pandemic. The economy is all over the place, jobs aren't available. So, could you please shed some light on the present situation of this industry with respect to COVID?
When you say this industry, is it digital?
Digital.
I think that's the only industry that has
That's
grown 10x.
actually grown, yes.
Going
Yeah,
back to
it's
was
grown 10x. It's unfortunate that there are many job losses in the retail sector. And in like if you've walked into a mall recently, it's not a fun sight at all. And but I, so in this 1 year of the pandemic, we have grown close to 5 to 8x of what we would have grown
Very true.
in the last 10 years. So the behavior of what would have grown in 10 years has happened in this 1 year from the users online behavior purchase perspective. So digital is quite recession, and I would say almost pandemic proof in that sense. And whether we like it, of course, it is at the cost of other industries like travel and hospitality. Having said that, we've been very lucky that our customers have grown. We've done in the last 1 year, we've done India's largest. We've done extensive amount of work for India's largest bank. We have launched 5 new deep tech assets online for our Singapore client. We have done, I don't know, maybe 30 or 40 web stores for clients. And at the same time, we've also launched a digital museum, which was something quite unique for us and has got extensive PR as a non-profit as well. So from that perspective, the way I see digital going, it's not going to be a standalone function anymore. Businesses will understand that it is required to be an intrinsic function. And I think if you are today studying and learning to be recession or having slight more job what do you say job readiness, I think self study on digital would be highly recommended. So if you are in comms, then you should definitely look at new modes of online PR, new modes of how are you doing content marketing, how can you do how do you read numbers. Actually, if you did spend time on doing courses on analytics, especially web analytics, I think that's useful for everybody. I have had some of my very senior clients in the senior C-suite clients actually understand Google Analytics, which is something that we all use for assets. I would also say that don't focus too much on social media platforms, because we all know what happened with TikTok. There were so many brand marketeers who were encouraging brands to spend money on TikTok, and suddenly I personally thought it was one of the shittiest platforms in the world to be on as a brand. And I think it was quite okay when it got removed, because I didn't see any brand genuinely rising in its standard by being on TikTok.
Very true.
Similarly,
I agree with you, ma'am.
yeah,
It's very
it was,
annoying. A very annoying site overall. I just,
yeah.
even if
And
they advertise something, even that was
you just lost
just,
respect
yes,
for that
exactly.
particular brand to be on that platform. So
Very true.
I think no harm done there, but unfortunately we as humans tend to jump onto anything new and shiny. So TikTok, I remember somebody showing me, like, forwarding me TikTok videos, and I used to be like, "Ye kya hai?" It is so demeaning to watch this. Anyways, so that's totally my personal opinion. Please, nobody send me hate mail after that. Okay?
No, ma'am,
So,
nobody will. Don't worry. It's just everybody's sick and tired of that.
yeah. So don't focus so much on platforms, but focus on what company or organization you are representing and where they will find the most value. And in my last 20 years on digital, the one asset that I have always stressed on with every single client is focus a lot on your website. Don't focus so much on Facebook, because tomorrow Facebook rules change, and they change like hell. There's new ad rules every other week. uh, Instagram is sitting on a ticking time bomb, because a lot of TikTok has gone on to IGTV. So it's become equally, like the Reels thing. So it's become
Very true.
equally annoying. So what happens is that, but your website today, the any amount you invest on your website, whether you're building a shopping cart, whether you're adding a CRM, whether you're adding a content management system, it's your owned media. You have full control. And actually, where does a person go to after seeing a social media ad, right? It comes to your website. So if you think of it logically, the biggest function, and you should all learn, is how to think about websites, how to write navigation strategy, how to create customer journeys, And one of the places you can learn a lot is from the HubSpot Academy. So I also work very closely with HubSpot. So you should actually, and it's all free. And it's, it's up to you how much of intelligence you want to build into your website for a client. If you really want to make yourself valuable to any employer or even for your own business, work extensively on your website and make it so good that there's no difference between a startup and a multi-million dollar company when you look at websites. It makes such level playing field. So you have that opportunity to be able to up your game there. So therefore you should function on that particular. And in my 20 years, any website that we have built today, I don't remember any client saying, oh, it was a bad idea. So extensive amount of customer journey experiences is something that you should look at. Like right now, we are looking extensively at personalization. We are looking at even things like, how much do you scroll on a website? That much of data is available. Even there are heat maps today. So read more and more of this. And all of it, trust me, I don't pay anybody to teach me also. So I am very happy to find stuff online and just keep reading and look at examples. Talk to people online who are well established thought leaders in this space. It's just curiosity, ultimately, at the end of the day.
So, ma'am, we have a question in the box. So it says, Vaishali asks, ma'am, what are some of the books that you read on digital marketing that can be helpful to us too?
Okay, so the challenge with digital marketing books are that they are outdated the minute they are published. So unfortunately, cannot recommend books only for this particular topic because it is a very, very fast moving industry. I suggest you read a lot of HubSpot blogs to start with because they are literally the best resource when it comes to digital marketing and strategy thinking. And they have different levels. They have a beginner level, they have an intermediate level, etc. And they take you through great learning content. So I think if you literally spend an hour every day on the HubSpot blog, I can guarantee you that in a month's time, you would be knowing a lot more than you would buy a book on this. And the other resource that we use a lot is called CMS Wire, which is again a website because it is, these are people who are practitioners. So people like myself. So when they are practicing something and then they are publishing it there. And on LinkedIn, what you can do is follow certain folks who write frequently about digital marketing. Stay away from the ones who are marketing themselves because I find that a little bit of an overkill. But people who are genuinely thought leaders in this space. So CMS Wire and HubSpot are great resources for you to start off on. And then of course, you can they will lead you into different things, as you go. And today, because again, because of the pandemic, some very good conferences have now become available online. So one of the conferences that I used to speak at in the US is called Content Marketing Summit. That is something that you might want to take a look at as well. And maybe all of you can just get together and buy one um, ticket and get access to some great learning content. The other event which you can also take a look at is called South by Southwest. That's again, it's my mecca for learning. It happens in March every year, and it happens in Austin. Again, this year it's happening online, so it's a great opportunity for all of us to just attend without leaving our house at this time. And some of their workshops are uh, very forward thinking. So what will come in the next 1 year or 2 years are the workshops that they conduct. So these are in digital. This is the only time where you have to learn before you do, and then do, and then learn again from that. So this is the part that this is the best route to learn in this space.
Absolutely, ma'am. I think that answers Vaishali's question perfectly. Right.
So, ma'am, one more question regarding the website you were talking about. So, what are the technological or strategical, advancement that you're seeing right now, in the pandemic situation that you have seen the boost is happening? So, how are you, categorizing things like that? Like, what are the advancements that you've seen? What are the tools that has, suddenly come up?
Well, in our dictionary, a lot of these tools were already coming up, but what has come up in the forefront is that Shopify has become like a power tool now, for especially for mid to small businesses that want to sell directly. So in fact, Shopify is a great way to learn about e-commerce as well. It is one of the fastest growing tech companies in the world, and it allows businesses to sell online very easily. And you can spend there's some great content on Shopify's blogs as well as to how you can. So that is for the e-commerce category. Then, if you're looking at large community development websites, which is what we see as the next big thing, in that you need two major components. One is the CMS, which is the content management system. So of course, WordPress is largely a preferred option. And then what you need is a CRM, which is the customer relationship management tool. So again, I personally am a big fan of HubSpot. We have also, of course, worked with some larger ones, but HubSpot again works extremely well on a CRM. So one of my current projects, which we've been heading for the last 3 years, is the deep tech community that we have for the Singapore government. So that site has some 2.5 lakh visitors a month, and is quite phenomenal because it grows organically. And so all of this, the secret sauce for all of this is actually great content. So if you have today, I mean, look at your own behavior. You are not reading stuff that is. I hope not many of you are reading Pop Exo, right? And I hope some of you are reading much smarter things. So it is also a large function is of content, and the second is of the understanding of my user. So if I can read my analytics well, I can understand the demography of my user. I can understand what exactly are they looking at, and I can build more content around it. And there is no stopping these cycles. You don't build a website once and then forget it. It's a constant process. Like, you don't open a store on one day of the week, you open it for all 6 or 5, 7 days, right? It's like that. So the change and shift in mentality towards a website being an experience center for your business, being a safe storefront for your business, is extremely important. I see that has finally sunk in after many, many years. So that's a good thing. But the CRM CMS combination is one. The e-commerce functionality with Shopify is another. And then, of course, analytics with we start with Google Analytics, and depending on traffic, you can keep going up to higher and higher tools.
Right, ma'am. So, ma'am, I have one question for you,
Sure.
because, ma'am, you have been involved in a lot of projects throughout the course of your career. So, if you could please talk to us a little bit about your most successful marketing campaigns to this date.
I want to talk about my failed campaigns.
I'm sure, ma'am, absolutely, and
success
what you
is so
learned
sub
from them.
Success is so subjective that, today, what 5 years ago I would think of as success is no longer like a big success now. But my failed campaigns or my failed projects, or the project, I think my most difficult project is what I think I would like to talk about is um, so so we are all familiar with dengue, right?
Yes,
Dengue is a disease, right?
yes, ma'am, yes.
Okay, so this was during my stint in Singapore. We were working with the Singapore government to raise awareness towards dengue prevention. Okay, so and it is serious business, right? Because it involves the whole country. This project category, or this strategy section, you've heard of B2B, right? Business to business and business to consumer. This is a section which I call G2C, which is government to citizen.
Okay,
Okay. So
okay.
basically, it is the Singapore government raising awareness amongst its citizens about dengue. So there were 43 people involved in this project from 4 agencies and the government department, which was the National Environment Association. And every time there were more than X number of cases in the morning declared that, okay, today there are X cases, all 43 people had to report to the National Environment Agency at 8:30 in the morning. So we would get a notification at 7 a.m. And if that was the case, that today is a reporting day, that we would have to reach the NEA office at 8:30. So can you guess how many times in the week we would go?
Ma'am, every day.
I would have died. I was, we were going like 3 days in the week, and they were the most unproductive time spent, because can you imagine 43 people in a room for 2 hours is 86
Exactly.
man hours. Unfortunately, because the project was so confidential in nature, there was no email that could be sent. There was no exchange of data that could happen. And we had to discuss and figure it out and decide what the evening social media post or what the communication or what kind of damage. All said and done, it was a serious situation. But the sheer method in that managing, 6 months into the project, and I wanted to quit digital forever. I said I want to do nothing with digital, because it is like, you're dealing with something so serious, and on top of it you are spending time not really doing much, but you have to have so many approvals. That was the one single project in which I actually tried to quit the project, and tried to go and tell the environmental agency that, what, um, I think we can't do this. We can't keep coming 3 days, 4 days, because I can't do anything else. I'm just doing this, and I'm not doing also anything. It's just like
Exactly.
we are coming and talking about it.
Exactly.
So that, and I think ultimately they kind of got, I think a lot of us talked about it, but that was, and till date, my biggest learning from that particular project was that uh, SOPs, or standard operating procedures, uh, are a thing of beauty. You have to actually design SOPs and standard operating procedures with a lot of insight and practicality in mind. And since then, one of the things that we always do is design very good standard operating procedures. It was just a faulty SOP at that point that made us do that, which was frustrating for every person involved. Not just, I'm not just saying it for me; it was for all of us. And uh, it brought me down to a point where something that I was doing for 2 decades and I really enjoyed doing, I was ready to never look at another social project or look at a digital project again. So I feel that if you don't enjoy it, and it goes back to my first point, that if you don't enjoy doing something, you must really look at it and see that, what is not working here, and why am I feeling so much of angst about it. So that was one of my failures. Of course, successes, I mean, they're all okay. What might be a success to me may not be a success to somebody else. The usual successes are the ones where, the client is happy about what you've done, turns around and says that, oh, thanks, we didn't think of this, or thanks for the suggestion. But the biggest, I think, my KPI for success is the trust that a client puts on us, or rather, the kind of sharing that they do with us. We tend to know a lot of information which is core to their organization, and they genuinely trust us to come back, and they let us go through ideas that we suggest, because that comes from a place where they think that they kind of trust you for what you're, they think that at least you know what you're doing. So I think for me, KPI of trust, and be, to be able to listen, hear clearly what they're saying, and be able to give them a well thought through recommendation is really one of the good functions of success.
Absolutely, ma'am. I think that was very well explained, and I've learned quite a few things today, hands down. Ma'am, I was wondering, do we? I'm from a healthcare background, as in I'm studying optometry. That has everything to do with the eyes. So, ma'am, I actually have no idea about digital marketing or digital strategy.
Mhm.
This is the first time I'm really talking about it. So, ma'am,
Okay.
do you think that we can do something if we learn about digital marketing and strategy? Like, how can we implement it in our lives as healthcare professionals?
So we work very closely with quite a few medtech companies in Singapore, and a lot of it is moving in, because one of the functions of the client that we have is that we are looking at deep technology for solving genuine global problems. And in that case, what we see is that while digital is not that critical to you in terms of survival or for your research or for getting, but tomorrow, let's say, for example, if you were part of a medtech solution company, okay, you're studying optometry, let's say you go into research, etc., etc. When you will look at raising money for the organization, what is your brand standing online for? Are you being able to communicate? about what your brand does very clearly to the stakeholders who you are marketing to. Let's say you join something called Lenskart. Let's say, example, you head something at Lenskart. Lenskart literally is a digital marketing company in itself, even though it's in the healthcare and eye care space. So I will see a lot more organizations being born like that. You see Portia Medical again in the medical field, but all their client acquisition happens online. The customer interaction today. If I have to book something, then it is again happening digitally. So that whoever your customer is will start looking at digital touch points more and more. So in whichever business you are in, you will have to see where your customers are getting in touch with you and how you are integrating and you are communicating with your brand, communicating about your brand very correctly. So I think Lenskart in your category is a great example of how they use digital marketing today. I mean, I'm a Lenskart customer for I don't know how many years since they were formed, and I've stopped going to my usual, Lawrence and Mayo and things like that. And I'm quite intrigued by it because I went to Lawrence and Mayo for years, and I switched to Lenskart without thinking because they just gave me great customer service. So, and it's only possible through a digital channel today. They can't service so many customers and take over Lawrence and Mayo, which has years and years of experience in that space. So the old method of working will get disrupted extensively and will keep getting disrupted in that sense. So therefore, for you to study organizations that exist online in your field and how they are disrupting the client journeys is fairly critical.
We can already see that due to the COVID situation, we are having telemedicine right now because there's
Absolutely. Absolutely.
to get, so that is one good point that has been taken up. And ma'am, I come from a fashion department, like she's coming from horticulture, I'm coming from fashion. So we have seen immense damage that has been done to the industry. The industry will require a lot of time to breathe. But yeah, e-commerce is working really hard. That's how, the marketing and everything is going on. So ma'am, from your perspective, what are the trends that are, for the following years, what are the trends that are there for the digital, industry and the digital marketing situation?
Actually, fashion is one industry like travel, which needs to completely change the way they have been approaching it so far. So actually, I don't know how much of numbers you've seen, but if you go and take a look at H&M's numbers globally from 2018 onwards, okay. Again, I try to look at more global numbers and not just specific regional trends. Uh, H&M's dead stock has been growing extensively. That was a very big warning signal in the fashion industry for a very long time.
Right now.
Yeah. So now, see, H&M didn't listen to customers. Okay. Today, you will have seen similar brands. Zara has maintained the edge over it. Though H&M sells very well in India now because of its pricing point, you will see brands like Uniqlo that have started to sell online with one single store in Delhi. They are selling online now, and yesterday I told somebody that Uniqlo has a sale online. Today she sent me a thank you message. She has done some 15,000 rupees of shopping. So it's not that the demand has gone down. It's the shift has to happen now, and people have to value their customers. Now, the fast fashion, I think, is kind of going to die if you're looking at that trend, and value, quality, value, all these things will come back to the play. So I think fashion has to relook it, and in the overall trend, I've already talked about large scale and very strong websites is one big space, but that is going to be work in progress for many years for many brands. And the other is the direct to customer sales. Within that, one of the trends is personalization, where you have more and more personalization of the user. So you are delivering what I want to know and not what you want to sell me. Okay, so of course today Myntra and Amazon and a few other good websites do that, but more and more personalization requirement will come in. And I think also what will come in is some new disruptions. I think the second sales I'm seeing in fashion is doing well. I don't know whether it's going to be a sustainable trend or is it a temporary trend, but I see a lot of seconds. People are very okay now to recycle because we are while we
Just
was we, yeah while
yeah,
we were sitting on the crux of the pandemic, we've been sitting on a bigger disaster called climate change, right?
Right.
So I don't want to get,
Shopping right
sorry.
now. Thrift shopping, ma'am. Every month,
Yeah.
like I've seen it in social media, so many pages. Like everyone is going for thrift shopping. They are
Yes.
using. So
And if you step back and you ask your grandmother, and if you ask anybody 50 years ago, thrift shopping was a thing in our country. Okay. We never threw things away. We repaired equipment. I used to be extremely annoyed in Singapore because if my toaster is not working, the guy used to tell me, throw the toaster. I said, but why throw the toaster? Repair the toaster. So we will become, because we have a lot bigger disaster than the pandemic actually. So if we have to start uh, ensuring that we don't face bigger calamities, I think this is a good time to wake up. So I think the second sales, the reusability, the recycling, the sustainability aspect, I think those are going to be larger trends which will govern what comes out, what is born now.
and we should always take inspiration from what happened in the previous past, like the Katha stitch, which is it's the Shan of Bengal, like the embroidery of Bengal. What the entire concept was, it's all about sustainability, using the
Correct.
same material, using just a simple stitch. So these are a few things, yeah, definitely we taken out as a point.
You should
So
write to me, Kritika. I'll send you. We are doing at the museum. We are doing a very big exhibition on the Katha. So we have a lot of stuff on fabric. In fact, we have Ritu Kumar who is consulting us on creating the museum for fabric. So that might be of interest. And we just finished planning an exhibition on Katha, so that we go back. If we just went back a few decades, we would learn a lot more. We lost it all in this rush to be
fast,
somebody who
fast
we're
movement.
not.
Everyone is moving for the success and everything, but you need to stop. You need to see where your base lies.
We are losing the gems in this rat race of modern materialistic life.
Oh
So
my God, that was really deep, actually.
no, but yes, ma'am, that is the present situation right now. We are losing a lot of good things. So yes,
Well, as I said, if we
but we're also
recognize,
gaining a lot of
no,
good things.
if we recognize our mistakes, then we can only fix it,
It
right?
is a learning curve.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
So
ma'am.
that is the only way to do, is just to fix it.
Oh,
And I think if you just paid some attention to, what we had in our Eastern philosophy, what we had 50 years ago as, our way of living, I think there is tremendous amount to recoup from there.
absolutely, ma'am. Absolutely. And ma'am, on that note, ma'am, could you please talk to us about how did you deal with criticism, like not constructive criticism, but hate really in your field, and how did you overcome that, like log kya kahenge, to reach where you are today? Because that is a big thing in our society. Log kya kahenge all the time. So
लोगों का काम है कहना. So
exactly,
what do you care? You
because
have to
ma'am,
develop a skin. You have to
yes, ma'am. There are a
you
lot of students, ma'am, who want to be entrepreneurs. They want to, take risks. They really do want to, do that. They want to follow their dreams and goals. But log kya kahenge? So
see, if you have that thought, you are already lost. Okay.
very true.
So log kya kahenge? I mean,
Just
frankly
brush it off.
speaking, uh, it's like such a passe, right? Now you like, it's embarrassing to say that, log kya kahenge. I think there's so much of conversation today. I mean, even today, I admire Virat Kohli for coming back for his child's birth. He didn't care about what log kya kahenge. These are inspirations, right? And these are the icons that you today admire, right? That he came back and he came on paternity leave, whereas for men in India to do that is unusual. So that's a great inspiration to see that he didn't care about log kya kahenge, and ultimately, please bother about yourself. There is a very intrinsic,
Absolutely, ma'am.
and the other thing is, I follow a very good principle now, and I have also learned, not that I always knew it, is that if you need a witness, which is log kya kahenge, are basically that they are witnessing your life. If you need a witness in your life, please be your own. You cannot think that somebody else witnessing your life will be of any use to you. And if you are looking for witness, and if you're looking for validation outside, you have already reduced your integrity as a person. So this log kya kahenge is like a cop out,
This
you
is
know.
bogus.
You don't want, if you are saying that, then you probably don't want to do it.
Very true.
You try to please unpeel that onion a little bit and ask yourself that, do I really want to do this? Am I using log kya kahenge as a way to get out of this? Because if you really don't want to do it, what do you care? Yeah. Kya kahenge?
Very true, ma'am. So, ma'am, how did you deal with this negative feedback when you were on your journey?
So I get this asked very often that, did you face bias? So I think this is the zoom out question is bias as a woman, and then from the community that I belong,
Absolutely. That women
then
don't
things
work.
like that. Honestly speaking, I didn't face a bias when it came to being a female. I think I was very lucky, I would say, in that sense, because see, the entrepreneurial piece saves you from a lot of workplace functional bias. Okay, where you are the boss, so you are not competing for any role, so you don't have office politics to deal with. Okay, so that is one way where I got lucky, and I think that's a great side effect of being an entrepreneur. And the other is that ultimately, really, no one is thinking about you. It is our own, it's in our head that we think that somebody else is thinking about you. So if you convince yourself that really nobody cares, and it is me who should be bothered about what I'm doing, that will let you forget all these things. Having said that, of course, I've always heard that, I'm a single mom, and I have two teenagers. I live in Bangalore, literally with no family here right now, and that was a big deal. So um, the simple thing was that do the right thing. You don't cheat, you don't lie, you are honest, and you are living a life which is functionally right. You don't need to worry about anybody's anything. So just try to come back to something which is your core center, and don't worry about things about log kya kahenge, and laugh it off. Seriously, laugh it off. Then nothing annoys another person that if you don't take them seriously. So
Absolutely. We have to
if
develop a thick skin.
just
What
laugh it
we
off. Yeah.
call what we call in Bengali gondare chamra, thick skin.
হ্যাঁ সেটা তো ওটাই করতে হবে. So it's not just that. I mean, in that developing the thick skin, please don't lose your own sensitive being.
Integrity.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
don't become insensitive to people. That's something I've realized, that when people get thick skinned, they also lose their emotional quotient.
Very
So the detachment is good, but not at the cost of being inhuman. And really, nobody cares what you do. I'll tell you that. Even and only people you should care about who think what you do, and you have to set an example, is you have to make your parents proud, and you have to take care of your immediate family. Other than that, if somebody cares about you, they'll get you. If they are not getting you, then I think either you're not doing a good job in explaining what you're doing, or they just don't get you. So it's not really such a mountain to carry.
right.
Thank you, ma'am. That was
Ma'am.
quite a very, very insightful session, definitely. And with that, we come to the end of this insightful session. I hope
Thank you.
you all gain something out of this, because I gained a
I
lot.
sure did. Me too. Kritika,
I think your girls are just very, very flattering, I must say.
no, ma'am. Honestly, I didn't just learn about digital strategy and marketing. Like I told you, I had no clue about this. So, not just that, but even how to be a proper human being, really.
Oh,
So, how
thank
to
you.
deal with situations. No, honestly,
Y'all are living at a time and in a generation that has tremendous opportunities, and I'm very happy to see where girls are going today. And I'm extremely happy to see that y'all are able to ask and answer questions which we, even in our 40s today, we are struggling with on a daily basis. So my only last piece of advice to everybody would be that continue to read, look at our Eastern philosophy more, because actually in our 2000 years ago, I think we as a race were very, very advanced. So I started reading philosophy 3 years ago, and I started with Western philosophy, and then I started to realize that all of it was a derivative of Indian philosophy. So I was like, oh, ये तो it's like घर में छोरा and गाँव में ढिंडोरा.
हमारे पास already है ये.
So then, and then I saw that, oh, they are picking up nuggets from our Indian philosophy and Chinese philosophy and marketing, because the West is great at it, right? Marketing. They've taken our haldi and our rice and all that, and they've taken our philosophy also.
Absolutely.
So read as much as you can. It's a great time to be there, and we are very lucky to be able to have these kind of exchanges.
Yes, ma'am, definitely,
Very,
ma'am. Hoping to meet
very
you
true,
some.
ma'am.
You could take out time for us.
My
Definitely.
pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sujanya, for having me. And I'm available on LinkedIn as Kavita Chaudhary Jhunjhunwala. If anybody would like to connect for any questions, anything that I can do, any help that you need, feel free to reach out to me, and I'll be more
I'll
than
do it
happy to connect.
today.
Done. All right, you guys have a great evening.
Thank you
And
so
thank
much,
you so
ma'am.
much.
Ma'am,
Yeah,
we would love it if you could be a part of another such session in the future. So please.
sure. We'll do that for sure. We'll do a different topic next time.
Absolutely. We have a deal. Thank you, ma'am.
All right. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Good night.
Bye. Good night. So, to the new students, if you would like to be a part of this program and host it, don't worry, we return every fortnight and we are inviting some amazing guests, just like you saw today. So, mark the dates in your calendar because it is going to be your turn in no time at all. Last but not the least, we would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude towards the NSHM Center for Language and Communication for giving us this wonderful opportunity. And of course, our lovely viewers for all the support and love. And on that note, Archana says, very informative session. Thank you, Archana. So I'm Uishi Pal from Bachelor of Optometry, NSHM Knowledge Campus, Kolkata. And this is
Kritika Ray, obviously from BSc in Fashion Management. So hope to see you all again soon. And thank you for joining in.
Yes. Stay healthy, have fun, wear your masks, and we are still in January. So, wish you a very happy new year. And remember, all of you budding entrepreneurs out there, comfort is meant for mattresses. That is what you take away from today's session. So, guys, have a great year ahead, and let's meet next time.